Okay, so now let's look at scalable and composable kind of UIs. So now one thing I've done over here is just to really push sort of an example home. I've made a background for a button which is like a puzzle piece. Now when you export this, see at the moment this is 1024 by 1024, this sort of canvas region to design in, but I've exported as 256 by 256, and here now if we splice this thing up, what it means is we basically the fixed components, when you do the splicing you create fixed versus sort of scalable components. The fixed components are smaller, which gives me a bit more flexibility. So let's just make sure we have the all of the sort of visually compressed. Actually, now the challenge will be right. So this part will stretch vertically, but at least it will be consistent, which means that this should fit within this hole, right? So the puzzle piece will consistently be a puzzle piece, even if it scales. In some cases, that won't look fantastic, but at least it'll look okay. It'll have some sort of visual integrity. So top and bottom, what sort of difference is 26? Wow, okay, bottom, so yeah, okay, so let's call that 30 and just see, 35 I seem to agree on. Let's just see how that looks. So is that consistent? No, that does need a few more pixels just to make sure that it's past the scaling bits. Yeah, okay, a bit more. Top and bottom, so let's try 35, and that's tremendously square all around then. Okay. Yep, that just fits in there. Okay, so what does that mean? So that means this region here will be consistently, it's just this sort of light grey colour. This bit will be pushed to scale vertically. That'll, okay, that's not good. Just realised I need to bring this in. This has got to be protected against scaling because the corner will look horrible if that scales. So the way that was, like this, that would have scaled horizontally as that stretched, so it would have stretched all of that part, and that would be no good. So I need to bring this in to about there. So that should be about 70 roughly. It's not. That's interesting. Oh no, I guess that's fine. Yep. Okay. So let's just see if that would probably be the more ideal point because it's more consistent after that. So let's do that. Okay. Alright, so let's try it. So we'll do an apply. It'll be a bit of a crazy button, but that's the idea. Let's try something crazy. Just as I made this crazy corner button here too. It's called the odd square. Now, so for instance, just to give you an idea what happens, right? So if we clicked out, so right now we just have a canvas which is totally scalable. It's just got this background. Sorry, it's got this one panel. If I highlight, you can see this whole panel is actually giving us the background, and here's the button in the middle. With the button has this odd square of 256 by 256. If I use the 1024 version of it, you'll see that the corners are larger because these are about 130 odd pixels or something. If you look at the sprite editor splicing of it, yeah, 134 pixels. So what that means is that's 134 pixels that can't scale in the corner, right? So when it's click on the button, when it's 200 by 400, right? If I make this 400 by 400, it's having to dedicate 130 pixels this way and that way just to that corner. Likewise here. So this looks okay like this, although the text needs to be bigger. So we can deal with that. That's fine. That, for instance, right? So just to make it consistent, so 134. We know we need 134. So this is like pushing from the outer of the button where's the, wait, oh, right, hang on, scene, that's better. I'm wondering why I can't see the, right, so here, by putting 134, knowing that's the number of pixels that this corner gets, right, this puts the button text square into the fully scalable part. This bit here stretches horizontally and vertically. Remember, this doesn't stretch, this stretches horizontally, that stretches horizontally, these parts stretch vertically, and this doesn't stretch, you know, all the corner pieces don't stretch. So when you have a 134 by 134 corner that can't stretch, that consumes quite a bit of pixels. Right, so these are some of the trade-offs you need to think about when you're making backgrounds for buttons. Let's make that auto size at least. That's the sort of trade-off you end up making. Okay, now that's fine. Let's make another button. And we'll try the other, one thing at a time. So button, let's move it down there, down here somewhere. Okay, and we'll make it 400 by 400. Okay, maybe a bit more down. Now, if it had the 256 by 256 sprite, right, so that instead of being, this is a quarter of the size, so what, it's about 30, in fact don't have to guess. Click on here and take a look at the sprite editors. Yeah, wrong one. This one, sprite editor, it's 33, right, 33 pixels, that's 33 by 33, that corner, right, these corners, and 33 in is where the this bounding square is, where it can be fully scaled. So I can, for instance, grab this and make it 33 left, right, top and bottom, indent, and I can auto size that button text, right? So here, if I wanted to change this to be click me number 2 sort of thing, and make this click me number 1. This is naturally, these are the trade-offs you're making, right? This is naturally more squished in the center, whereas this has got a bit more space to it. So, you know, and otherwise this is a very similar sort of shape. Okay, so what else can we do, right? So another button. Okay, so let's drag this straight up. Now, puzzle piece. Okay, so go here. I want to drag the puzzle piece into the sprite, and let's make it 400 by 400. It's got a huge. Okay, there we go. Right. So the thing about this puzzle piece is that it should be able to sort of snap into each other like that. Right, so that looks pretty cool. If I go to the puzzle piece, where are you? And we'll look at the sprite editor. What did I have? Left and right, so 64, 35, 35, right. So that means in here, in the text, so 64, in there, 35, 35, 35. And here, same deal, 64, 35, 35, 35. And I can highlight both of these and both auto size. Neat. And for instance, if we change one of the colors, I don't know, make it purpley something. It's a bit gross. Let's give it a bit of a pastel purple. That looks a bit more cheerful. Less dominating, and like makes this one, I don't know, greenish, pastel-y green. Yeah, maybe yellow. Alright, that seems to be a bit less threatening. So here, this will scale reasonably well vertically. In fact, it'll scale reasonably well regardless. Alright, so now in fact, most of these will. this will look a bit weird if it gets too distorted horizontally. Let's give this a look, right? So if we change this to be 3000 by 2000, actually it's done pretty well for itself. If we make, oh, I know why. Because I gave these things fixed sizes, didn't I, right? 400 by 400. So, you know, that's okay, but at some point by giving them fixed sizes, you know, you're going to hit, these will get squashed into the sides. You know, if you end up with a something that's too vertically not tall, right? Like something that's quite short, some sort of display, or when you switch from landscape to portrait or vice versa, you're going to bump to the sides possibly. So for instance, what we can do differently if we want to make this scale, we can sort of lay these out. We could have a few of these, right? Just to really kind of demonstrate the idea. Hold on. Right. Now let's drag them kind of like that. Okay, so now what we can do, let's really make this scale. In fact, let's also make a new panel. So let's call this the puzzles. Right, and we'll take all of these and pop them into there. Let's make this, we'll make this the top third of the display, regardless of whatever it is. So here, that's going to go from 0 to 1 horizontally. See the anchors? That's great. But we want this to be the top third, so that'll be 0.66 to 1. And we can see that indeed this is about 2/3 up, this bottom anchor. And now we just need to make that 0. Now the buttons are relative to their parent, which is why they just got pushed up. So I'm going to grab all of these guys. Vertically, they need to be from 0 to 1, so they're going to take all the vertical space. But what we might do is give them, say, 10 pixels either side of top and bottom. No, maybe that's not enough. Let's try 30. Okay, that's better. So they're indented and past any kind of boundary stuff. Okay, also this panel, just how I look at it, should be indented a bit. At least 30. So this is just to get it past the boundary border piece, right? See if I zoom in, get a that boundary there, and it's also nice to get past the kind of roundedness there. Like if this sort of gets too close to this round bit, it won't look good. Okay, so this is pretty good. Okay, and this will scale, and you know, these puzzle pieces will always look reasonably convincingly like puzzles, regardless of how much it gets stretched. So if we switch resolutions, okay, I haven't addressed the horizontal part, which is why it's slipping out the sides. This is making my point from before. And if we change this to be, you know, but at least vertically it's kind of hanging together. So let's fix that, the horizontal part. So we have 4 of them, which means quarters roughly. So from 0 to 0.25, from 0.25 to 0.5, from 0.5 to 0.75, and 0.75 to 1. Right, that gets the anchors in the right spot. Yeah, whatever. This one. So now we just got to get the offsets right, and we might give them, let's start with 0 and see how we go. Yeah, come back. We'll just do that all the way around. Okay. Oh, of course, right. Yeah, so I forgot. These guys need to overlap slightly. Right, so the way we do that is we'll do a pixel overlap, and because we know how wide that is, we can make this work. Interestingly, whatever, doesn't matter. I'll swap my, so which is which, that one and that one. What? No, that one, right. I'd like to swap those two positions. So, okay, so that's 0.75 down to 1. And this guy should be 0.5 to 0.75. That should. And I have to zero these things out to fix the position properly. Okay, that's better. Okay, now to make these overlaps work, what was the space puzzle to fix? Let's go to sprite editor. The right hand side's 35, that's right. So we want, we can go two ways. We can either make this wider by 35, which is actually the easiest way to do it. So that means for the button here, we can add a right negative 35, which should push it out to the right. See, there we go. We'll just keep doing that kind of thing, except for the last one. So right minus 35. The other way of doing it would have been to bring in this insertion piece through into there. Like, we could have gone one way or the other. Either way we go, one of these, they're going to be, the widths are going to, one of them will be slightly wider than all the rest. Okay, so here, minus 35, and we're done, right? So now we have 4 buttons that are puzzle pieces. Right, so that's pretty neat. Now, just like we've got this panel for the puzzles, we can do the same thing for the other two. See, so we can make a UI panel. Let's make it sort of in the middle. So vertically, this will be 0.33 to 0.66, and I'm just going to zero that out. And left and right should have a 30 kind of padding on them. In fact, top and bottom could stand to have a bit of padding as well. And then, which one of these buttons is the center button? Nope. This one. So we drag that into our new panel. Rah. This will be panel center. And this guy needs to be 0 to 1, and so that should be fine. And indeed, we can see now that this is where it sort of starts to push the limits of scaling, but that's how it goes. Now we can, in this particular case, we can also scale this way. So for instance, we could do this, which will kind of attacks the text a bit, but can address and give us a bit more flexibility. Means that this gets a bit bananas actually, but it means you can go from minus 0.5 to 1.5 for an anchor, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but so that's another way of addressing, where you've got the pixels are just a bit bananas. So we've actually scaled, instead of being 134 by 134, this is half that, which is like, what is that? 66, something like that, by 66, roughly. Whereas this guy will actually scale better, because the corners aren't so gross. It's not going to force us into this sort of problem quite so easily. So let's make another panel. So this one's, which one's that one? That's the whole thing. Right, so this is our button. Yep. Okay, so let's just collapse this panel. Panel, this will be the bottom panel. And this will go from 0 to 0.33. And okay, we're going to do the whole 30 everywhere thing. And we're going to drag our this guy into here. And we're going to make it from here. 0 to 1, and make that 0, 0, and see that's sort of fitting in there much more neatly. And so the fact that it's got itself this actually what's going on? It's a bit wider. Okay, could do with a little offset. That'll be the panel. Give me a panel. That's interesting. Give it a bit of bottom offset of say 35. What? Oh, wait, no, why? No, it's fine. Right. Actually, on the button, we give it 10. Actually, hold on, 0 there. Just give it 10. Yep, okay. That looks a bit better. Just a bit of buffer on the top and bottom there. Okay, and actually this guy could stand with having the same sort of buffer there. Okay, so now we have a fully scalable but pretty interesting looking user interface, right? So if we go into the game mode and change the aspect, right, it all, apart from this guy which is under pressure always because of this crazy, so if we use this background it'll be much better. That's really just to demonstrate the point. See, so it still sort of hangs together, even though here it's starting to look a little bit too vertically stretched, but it's still okay. You know, so this gives us a bit more horizontal space. Right, so it's looking okay. Now the other thing too is, if you know you're going to be in landscape all the time, or you want to have a more landscape-oriented view, then you can just put some vertical buffer on your kind of root panel, right? So, for instance, if I do give this, I'll just do 100 pixels top and bottom, just to kind of prove the point. You know, that sort of pushes it to be more of a landscape view. So, even in 1024 by 1024, which no such monitor ever exists pretty much, except for something very custom, even then it's going to look a bit more landscape. So that's your scalable, composable kind of UI. Like I said, this button is always going to be, this center button is always going to be a bit of trouble. And the simple solution is, instead of, we've tried the scaling, which is not nice, that makes it hard to deal with. Instead, we're better to go with a lower resolution, where are you? Our lower resolution crazy square. So, come on. Yeah, no, that is the guy. Okay. What? Yes. 0, 0 to 1. Let's make that 0. Well, no, 10. Gives a bit of buffer. And we'll give it the better UI. So, pod square 256, 256. And it's going to look better. Say. In fact, we can change, go back here, where are you? This text could be improved. Right, right? We don't have to have this anymore. Instead, we could be 35. And it gets to use more of that space and just avoiding these corners. Okay. So there you go. That's how to make. Gives you some idea how to play the trade-offs when you're making your custom button borders for that better scaling. Just the lower resolution gives you a better flexibility about the 9 slice sprite. Here we've got something quite interesting. Probably this would look more interesting with 4 different colors instead of 2 repeating patterns, but you get the idea. Okay, well, there you are. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. If you do, please give the old thumbs up. That really helps. Any comments, go for it. Let me know what your feedback is. And click subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of stuff.